Hello, 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 and welcome back to Man, an authentic conversation with myself, Cedric Edison, and the always so eloquent Ron Servant. And I get to call this wonderful man my friend as well, too, guys. So awesome. Um, hey, welcome to the show. Hey, each week, we come to you guys with various topics that we come up with, or you guys submit to us, and we have a very cool topic. Um, we were going to discuss tonight. But guys, again, we always like to start off with why we're doing this. We do get a lot of help from being able to talk amongst ourselves, Ron and I. But we also do this because we see a need for men to be vulnerable and authentic, and we just sit around and bring our most vulnerable selves to these topics. So it can be aware to other men as well as women, to get an inside take on just two average guys out in the world. So this week we're going to be covering the topic of death. It's not as dark as you guys may seem, but it is some real talk between, like I say, just two guys from two different walks of life giving their thoughts around it. So, Ron, if you want to give a quick hello, and then we'll go ahead and dive right in.
All right, we are back. Cedric Edison and myself, Ron Servin. We've got I think all of our topics have been interesting. We spoke a few weeks back about having the conversation around life. And when we spoke about that, we definitely felt like there's the need and opportunity to speak about death, which, death is a part of life. And we just wanted to share this experience with you. So, Cedric, I'm going to dive in. This is kind of a two-part question. So, first part of the question is, how would you like to be remembered?
Wow. Very interesting. If I had to just kind of simplify it, I would want to be remembered as a fearless man, um, a courageous man, and an earnest man. Um, because all of those, and I would probably say an honorable man as well, but that kind of goes into the honest thing. Because I feel like those are some of the top qualities in being a man. Was what better way to be honorable, to be able to stand, say, hey, he always stood by his word. He was very honorable, always upfront, honest. Um, and I guess the courageous part would be, to hey, he followed his dreams. He was never scared to go after it. Even though he probably faced, I faced fear. Um, and earnest. Because for me, I guess when I look at being earnest, it's being trusting in mankind, coming from a place. Because when I look at how can I be earnest, it's just to look at another person and just look at them as a human being, and always give them the benefit of the doubt on initial meeting, um, and extend all love and everything that I would to anybody, to a stranger. So I would say that's how I would like to be remembered.
Okay, I like that. And around that, so, obviously we may or may not have a tombstone, but imagine a tombstone and you're standing in front of it and you're limited to the words that might be written about you. What would be the simple things that you might see on that tombstone?
Um, Here lies a man that lived honor, courage, and commitment.
And how does that feel when you're, maybe visualize yourself right now standing at that location? I think you and I have talked before about just kind of experiencing ourselves. So maybe envision yourself standing at a cemetery, looking at those words on that tombstone, and just maybe describe what those feelings that come up for you might feel like.
Um, I feel like looking at it from that Ghost of Christmas Past and all of those, but look, it's proud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a strange thing, but I could look back and if I have lived all of those things, then I could say I lived a proud life. I'm happy. I'm content. Um, and satisfied in knowing that even if I didn't know it, I was an example to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a it's a good feeling. I just kind of sit there and I'm just kind of smiling.
I like that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Um, so I guess I would have to, shoot that back to you. Um, when you're sitting there, how would you like to be remembered?
For me, I think one thing that really stands out from, if I was to listen to somebody speaking about me, dedication would definitely be at the top of my list, or how I would feel others might put at the top of their list. Passionate, just, very committed to anything that I attach myself to in my life. Whether it's my relationship with my wife, to my career, to my friendships, to my my physical activity, all the things that have allowed me to be successful. I think people would say, or I would be remembered as somebody that is very positive and optimistic and willing to help others and to be real with individuals and allow them to be themselves and to honor that part about them that may be challenging, kind of like on this conversation that we have. Just allowing individuals to feel that there's space for them with me to express themselves, to be themselves, to not feel judged. um, a funny man. I mean, my sense of humor can at
Yeah.
times be more of a crutch for me, where I can use that as a way of protecting myself. So I'm more mindful of that these days. But I definitely feel that if somebody was to describe, or if they were remembering aspects of me, I definitely think that my sense of humor would be something that would bring a smile to their face as far as what they remember about me.
Okay. Hmm. So kind of like I would like to go through that same thing, like to see what it would feel like for you to look back and look at your tombstone and like what would it say and what feeling you have from looking at it.
um, as most tombstones state, here lies Ron Servan, a proud, committed, vulnerable, um, passionate man that gave life to himself and life to others. Um, I know I'm limited on how many characters I could put on the tombstone, so I'll be mindful of that. But um, just just being present. I think one that is kind of living life, one that pushed himself to be the best version of himself. Um, simple statements like that I think would represent. And then for me, standing over my tombstone and just kind of experiencing that. Um, as you stated, just feeling proud. I mean, I think just proud that I've been willing to push myself to enjoy my journey much more than I did for, some of the years of my life, just kind of playing small and not allowing myself to experience all of myself. So if I was to, pass tomorrow, I feel very good about what I've contributed to myself, my family, mankind. Um, so I would definitely feel that I have made a impact on people, on the world, and I would be leaving the world in a better place than it was when I entered into it.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes. So around the same genre of death, what's one truth that you would like to tell the world and shout it out and just feel like this is a mantra of yours that you would feel a need and a desire to share with those that are listening to your voice?
Wow, the one truth. Man, maybe this is like a precursor to the Thomas Howe. I think that's his name. Being on this show, he has the one truth. Man, like the biggest thing, and it's for me that resonates with me up to this point, and if I had to, and that's kind of my mission too, is to help people with fear, but it would be the presence of fear is usually a sign for you to slow down and think about what's on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it's a stop sign or a yield sign. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's just a flag for us to stop and take a look at. If that would be the one thing I would want to leave behind, have paperwork, SOP, all kind of stuff for, like y'all, fear is in your head. Like, just whenever you feel it, acknowledge it, but try to see what is on the other side and understand what is it about you that's stopping you.
Right. And I was just sitting here thinking about this topic, and not a question that we were planning to speak about, but I guess just something to keep in your mindset is how you share death with your son, from a standpoint of, what that experience, might, what experience you might have in going through your life and understanding about how death looks to you, and maybe an opportunity to share that with him at an age where, he cannot feel that fear that you're speaking of, and to show him that, that there's a way of accepting death as much as we accept birth. And we don't have to feel that there's that continuance of our life in some various way that is out there that we don't know, that unknown, right? That's in our presence, and it looks different in everybody's life as far as what their beliefs and experiences are. But to be able to share that with them, I think would be a valuable lesson for you guys to go through.
Yeah, and that's crazy you bring that up, man, because like first time dad, all that stuff go through your mind, and you start watching TV and you see like I'm trying to explain it to little Johnny or whatever, and I'm like, damn, I'll be honest, that's like, man, I can wait for that's one conversation I feel like I can wait for. It's like, man, how in the hell do you have that one?
Right.
But I figure the universal will work it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess that's where we kind of come in, though. Like the examples we lead and leave behind is like we have to make sure we're teaching them on the way. If I don't get nothing else from you, I know I get that. I'm like, all right, cool. It's just the journey. Like you got to teach them along the way. Like show them, lead by example. That type of stuff.
Yep. Give them the tools.
So if you had one last word to leave, one truth about the world, what would it be?
Well, I was just maybe an extension of what I was just talking about, just, one's willingness to accept death as part of the normal cycle of life, and to be, the importance of being present-minded to where you're not feeling like, you're going to leave this earth before you've been able to, achieve some sort of sense of who you are. and what your purpose is and what you really want in life. So I would say, a truth that I would like to pass on to my son would be that conversation, or that, that experience around, that which is greater, and trusting that, our journey continues in one way or the other. And this is just my belief. This is a belief that I'm putting out there as something that everybody else in the world or others might resonate with. But for me, I do believe that there's that our light lives on in some fashion. Our light was resonating before we were born, kind of that never born, never die type conversation. So I don't mean to get all philosophical, but just, living life, not just waiting for death. Living every moment not like it's your last, but enjoying every moment like it's your first. Just experiencing everything that life has to offer, whether it's, stopping and smelling that flower that you walk by every day, or acknowledging that person that you walk by and see every day, yet, kind of have that negative charge or that lack of connection with, that maybe that little ripple that you can give him or her might create change in that person's life, and so on and so on. So just accepting, that death is part of life. Death is the death of our body, but it's not necessarily the death of that which is greater than us, that energy, that space that is something that we all experience in our lives in one way or the other.
Cool. Man, ooh-wee. All right.
So now we're going to kind of change over to, and I'm not privy to, how death has looked like for you in your life, around others. So I'm interested to hear you speak about any specific experience around death has impacted your life.
Man, I'm not gonna lie, like death is a weird thing for me. I mean, I get it. It happens. It's life, but I almost feel like I'm kind of numb to it sometimes. Because I was just around it a whole lot. I remember my grandparents passing away when they were little, when I was little. And then it was fun. Like I had some years, but then really my preteen, from my preteen all the way up, and especially all the way to high school graduation, man, I came up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It was bad. People dying damn near every day. I saw people literally get shot and killed, so, you coming up around it, it just kind of becomes part of your everyday life. Like, oh, okay, yeah, dying, getting killed, or, just dying in general it's going to happen. So it hardened me, for the most part, but having my own close experience with it, that'll soften you up real quick, because, I always say, you have those questions you got to ask. Who was I? And what we talking about now, how would I be remembered? And, it'll put some shit in perspective real quick.
Right.
But until now, I mean, hell, I'm 38 and I'm really just now getting on this path, 37 years, and I still struggle with it. I can remember my little sister's funeral. I cried, but not really, because it was just, that male ego and that Marine ego, really. Like, Marines don't cry. I'm mad, I'm pissed off, and I'm like, hell no, I'm not crying. Maybe a drop here, a drop there, because I gotta be the strong brother,
Right.
Yeah, just all kind of stuff like that, man. That's who I am today, though.
So it sounds like you've had, kind of your experiences have made you, what I'm hearing from you is a little bit more numb to it. Maybe some of those feelings that you still may be having inside that you've never completely resolve. And I guess being open in your life to that opportunity to maybe grieve some of those losses that maybe you haven't completely. And I think that's, I guess being open to that as a man isn't always, the norm, but I guess I would encourage you to, allow yourself, if that does come up in your life, to experience that, even if it's 20 years later. I think, there is still a process to go through, and the lack of going through, certain aspects of death, with a loss of a loved one can cause you to be stuck at different areas of your life. So I guess
Well,
just be mindful of that in your life.
oh yeah, for sure. But and I'll be honest, but it's the best way for me to put it out there is like I, I won't say it hardened me, but and it's like what I'm struggling with now is it literally changed my thought process on it, like for real. To me, and when I look at and I guess I could say the judgments I would pass on other people or my thoughts about how they're feeling and handling death is how, because it does not compute. It's like, okay, they're gone, but okay, pull your britches up, like, let's go.
Right.
All right. And I understand, you mourn a little bit, but for me, it's like a very short mourning period. All right, hey, it's been a couple days. Like, there's nothing you can do. Like, and so that's where I'm trying to, like, it's made me hard there and trying to get back to a place to where I'm not judging or looking at people and just saying, hey, it is okay to feel that. It's safe to feel that. It's healing to
Yep.
feel that.
Yep. And I think with life, right, it's honoring everybody's journey, and some people's journey may be quite different than how we might process it, but that's why we're different. And I think the same, the same things that they're allowing you to experience through their, going through a grieving process might be something that you can look into your heart and make sure that you've allowed yourself to fully heal from situations that, especially as men, we might mask over, we might, harden off, we might, and you mentioned that word, versus, and maybe not realizing that scar may be something that's very much in the, depth of an issue that we have that's present today. So I guess just, the why behind the why, right? We learn that in our coaching protocol is, digging deeper. And I think we need to do that with all aspects of life, and death would be one of those for sure.
Yeah. And man, it's death is a funny subject though, man. It freaks a lot of people out. A lot of people, because I remember selling dude, I've done a lot of shit. I was selling door-to-door cemetery plots, man. Like knocking doors trying to sell cemetery plots. Like, oh yeah, hey, I'm here to talk about, your final days.
Right.
Like, it's a funny subject for people.
But I mean, I guess opposite that, or not opposite, but what goes along with that. I mean, you're giving that person peace of mind. So when that does happen, you're providing, an opportunity for them to go through that grieving process. So I guess just how you look at it, right? I mean, you're providing a service. It's not a service that's, that you would typically, sit at a bar and talk to somebody, this is what I do type thing. But obviously something that's needed to allow people to, kind of go through that process without the, kind of the hustle and bustle of preparation and all those things that go into, the loss of a loved one.
Yeah, because believe it or not, those were main selling points. But I mean, it's the reality, like people be at ease. You have other stuff to worry about, like the memories to haunt you. Not haunt you, but to remind you of who the person was.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like anything like that, how has death in your world impacted your life?
For me, most of my adult life and childhood, you had some loss of some grandparents, but weren't really close to them. So I didn't really feel that sense of dramatic loss in my life. But I have now experienced that with the loss of my father. And it's been, gosh, excuse me, Father, but it's been like 5 or 6 years now. Time goes by very quickly as far as his loss, but I was at work and got a phone call from the sheriff's department in the city that he lived in, and they pretty much told me that we found your father deceased in his apartment, and
Wow.
it was just completely surreal for me. I had spoke with him, maybe 4 or 5 days before that. It was 3 days after my birthday. My birthday is January 13th. He died on January 16th. So I went, got the phone call. It was about a half-hour drive to his apartment. Was meeting my sister there. Just thoughts going through my mind around, gosh, well, not so much then, but afterwards, about, why didn't I call him the day before to see how he was doing? So I'll talk a little bit more about that. But got there, and sheriffs were there, and they allowed us to go actually into the apartment and to gather some of his items. They hadn't removed the body, and I experienced my father there laying on the couch with a blanket on him, obviously with no sense of life, and just kind of the after effects of moving on in his life. And it was, I could almost smell death, I guess, and I never had smelled death before. So that was pretty surreal to, kind of experience that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was tough. I think a lot of crying, a lot of good memories, and feeling with him and I that we're able to share experiences later on in our life as father son. Me kind of being more of his father than him being my father, just due to kind of him struggling in many years of his life around alcoholism and depression and some other things that kind of kept him stuck. So feeling good about that experience with him, not, kind of having a lot of regrets of what I should or shouldn't have done to create better connection with him, just feeling very good about our efforts as father son to experience, even at a later stage of our life, that connection that we built. But I feel like he's here with me today. Just that, as I spoke earlier about that energy that in my life, how he still is very present in, some of my thoughts, some of my experiences. And it's, it gives me peace in my heart knowing that, he doesn't suffer anymore from those things that he was suffering from. He's, kind of free of the things that kept him stuck in his life, and that we had a good experience together as father son, kind of moving into those latter stages of his life. So it was tough. It was the smell, the experience, my first brush with, my first experience with death with my father, now being a father, and he spent time with my son, Anthony, and that, that was, and my son, remembers him and valued the times that we had together. So it really kind of makes me even more connected with being a father today, of trying to do my best to be, that best version of myself, knowing that death is inevitable for me, at least this physical body that I have, and just living more of my life like, that there's that connectiveness with that which is greater, and with, the energy that I feel that's within all of us. And I think that's carried over into my relationships with my friends, with you, Cedric, with, my family, my son. So out of the good out of the bad with death has come a lot of goodness as far as my own growth, and feeling, kind of okay with that.
Okay. So, man, that's shit. I don't know if I would ever want to find or even see one of my parents like that. So, having gone through that and seeing all of that, like that whole shit, that whole experience of death, Does that kind of make you afraid to die, or?
No, I mean, I feel very at peace with death. And I guess I feel some sadness, knowing that my son will miss me, and hopefully it's not at a point of my life to where, I, am there, as involved as I am now. Um, so no, to be honest with you, I feel very good with my life, good with my, kind of where I'm at, with my mental state of mind. And if I was told that I was going to die tomorrow, yeah, there'd be that sadness of the loss, more so for others in my life. But for me, um, I'm okay with it. I mean, I'm okay with where I'm at, and also not feeling that that's the end. That there is, that energy within myself that's going to resonate with those that are still on this planet Earth for the rest of their lives.
All right. I'm just kind of curious, man. Like, the movie Bucket List kind of popped in my head. So, do you feel like there's a bucket list? Like, what's the one bucket list thing you would do if you found you're, going to pass in soon? And kind of why?
That's a great question. I don't think there's necessarily like a place, like a fantasy place per se. I guess just maybe climb to the top of the most beautiful mountain with my wife and my son and family members, and to share all of what we've experienced in our life together, and to laugh, and to feel that all the things that we've done together have allowed us to create a bond, and the love that we've had is something that will be eternal. And so maybe that magical spot on top of a beautiful mountain overlooking the valley, and just shouting to the world from there, as a family or as an individual, this is okay. Life has been good. Life has been, amazing. I love life, and I will continue to love life in my own afterlife type situation. So, yes.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Yes. So now just a quick question for you, and you have to be honest here. And
Okay.
it's a very, kind of to the point question. Are you, Cedric Edison, afraid to die?
Man, like that initial thing was to say yes. Shit, been like, dude, like I for real been there, and it's a messed up. Even though it's a very peaceful place, uh, and I guess for some it could be a chaotic place, or a place full of regret. But I think most people would come to terms with it. But for me, man, like I believe, that I'm in line with everything, but it's just the sadness, or like I'm afraid of that unknown. Like, what is it gonna feel like? And I guess I'm more afraid of how I'm going to die versus dying, because of all people, I understand it's not tomorrow. It can matter, like for real happen, like we could just stop just like that and be done. I get it. And I prefer that versus, like for me, it's scary to think, like some horrific thing happening or whatever, like flying off a roller coaster. I don't want to go like that. Like my last moments, like trying to figure out a way to survive it.
Yeah, and I don't want to remember that, and I don't want to remember you dying that way either. So I'm going to be selfish here.
Right, but and and all of that is tied into it. I'm like, shit, man, that's gonna scar people. Like, man, I want it to just be, you know, honest, hell, having sex or hunting, something peaceful. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, the thought of it, when you sit back and think about it, it's split. For that moment, it's scary, and then, it's like, oh, you know what? It's not so bad. It's not the end.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of something else. Something new.
Oh man, I think when we put this out there to talk, I think it was stressing me out a little bit, but I really liked our conversation tonight. It really kind of gave me a really good sense of another man's perspective on death. I know we've all heard this before, but I'm going to say it kind of in closing, then turn it over to you for your final comments. But just knowing that everybody dies, but not everybody lives, and I think you can understand the meaning behind that. So my I guess closing remarks to those listening would be, live your life present, in the present moment. Allow yourself to experience all aspects of life, and love yourself, and know that death is part of the process, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a end all and a dramatic kind of concern or fear that you have to carry through your life.
Yeah, yeah, man. It kind of makes me. I'm glad we brought it up. I was in the same boat. Like, ugh, I was thinking it was going to be one of those deep, dark conversations. It totally went the exact opposite, and I like that we had it. But guys, it makes me think about the story of Colonel Sanders. He wasn't successful until he was like in his 60s, and he just kept trying, and then finally he was successful with his business. And that's when he felt like he was successful with his life. So with that, it's, like how you say, live your life. I've been on my deathbed, and I would say it is not a good feeling to be able to look back over your life, wherever that point is, and to have regret. That's the one way I do not want to go. And I would recommend to anybody, just live your life and enjoy the moments. So when you are there, you'll have no regrets. You can say, I lived it to the fullest. Like, I went balls to the walls with this life.
Nice. All right, sir. Well, as we all do at the end of our episodes, namaste to you and to all of our listeners.
Namaste.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.